All right, thank you very much for coming to this session. My name is Gilbert Espinosa. I'm with Impinj. We are an RFID company. I'll tell you a little more about us during the presentation. I'm here to talk about the impact of RFID in the supply chain, a little bit of how we work with barcoding, and give you some information about driving accuracy, efficiency, and connectivity using the Impinj RFID platform and working with some of the products from Barcoding, such as the RealView software. So I was telling some of my colleagues this morning, as I was preparing for this, I work from home up in New York State, and I'm in this really interesting situation. My wife works from home as well. And so we have separate offices, but she popped her head in. I was practicing. She asked what I was doing a presentation. When are you doing it? Tuesday. What time are you doing it? She goes to a lot of conferences. I said, I'm the last one, and I go, I'm the last one. She goes, oh, right before happy hour. And I go, yeah, but the last one, last is always best, right? I go, when you eat a nice meal, you save the best part for last, that last bite. And she looked at me and I said, so last is best. She goes, track and field? NASCAR? And I go, okay, so maybe last isn't always best, but at a conference, definitely. Yeah, so thank you for being here. If any questions come up, go ahead and shout them out. What I'm going to talk to you about a little bit is just our experience talking to end users, companies, some of the work we do out in the field. We have a focus on helping drive particular vertical markets from the manufacturer standpoint, and driving and evangelizing for RFID out in the field, helping to generate interest and build use cases to support that. So I'm going to share a little bit about what we've learned going out into warehouses, distribution centers, again, talking with the eventual end users. And then I'm going to show just a simple example of how the Impinj platform, working with barcoding, can drive some, the theme of the conference, accuracy, efficiency, and connectivity into the business environment. And I'll talk specifically, there's a whole lot of things RFID can do, and I think that's, in some ways, that's one of the challenges to discussing RFID, is that it could be ubiquitous within a business, but it gets cost prohibitive, right? It can be very expensive to talk to a 300,000 square foot warehouse, talk about putting up RFID readers everywhere. There's technological challenges to doing that, and sometimes I just think that the project can get so big that it can kill itself, right, under its own weight. So I want to drill down and just talk about a specific use case that delivers value immediately, that fills, one of the gaps in collecting information and really can drive some costs out of the business. So just to give an example of how RFID can be brought in to solve one problem. And then our belief at Impinj is that you can start anywhere. If you identify a problem and address it, and once you get that toehold of RFID into the business, then you can expand it at the rate that's acceptable for the business. It's not just a technology play. There's also process improvement that goes in. There's change management that has to occur. So it can evolve over time. It doesn't have to be all at once. And I think that's a really important thing to take away from here. You can bring in RFID, partner with barcoding, and address one thing, and then scale later. Okay? Does that make sense? All right, supply chain today. From raw material, manufacturing goods, distribution center, all the way out in this case to retailer delivering it to the consumer. That's a supply chain. And what we found is that, that's an industry that's been around for a long time. There's a lot of legacy processes. There's some old software in there that works pretty well. The challenge is that over the last decade, there's been new demands placed on the supply chain. And those demands have come from the very end of it, the consumer. And I think we all shop at Amazon. and we all log in, place the order, and you get updates pretty quickly, and even all the way through to a link so you could track the package from the delivery company that's bringing it to your house. And we've become, I would say, spoiled. And what that has done, that expectation that's coming from the end of the supply chain, from the consumers, has proliferated. Now other businesses are asking for that type of visibility. The challenge in a legacy supply chain is that there's gaps in how that information is delivered. And all the processes and workarounds that they've developed to provide clean information throughout the supply chain now actually have become part of the problem. And I'll explain that a little bit more, but what you're seeing, and with the demands for time and visibility, is that these gaps can become more painful for a business, and I would argue that they cost them a lot of money. And that's the opportunity we have by bringing in technology to fill those gaps, to drive costs out of the business, add efficiency and connectivity into those other applications within the business. So the supply chain has usually worked in two different segments. First, there's the manufacturing, taking raw materials, converting them, making products, putting them in distribution center. And then there's the end user, and as I said before, they're demanding certain IoT information, visibility to their orders that are now kind of backing up into the system. And in order to deliver that information, you need to have accurate data on the supply chain end of the systems to be able to address those demands. And that information is valuable, not just in terms of providing visibility to a shipment, but it also feeds a system of record. It can feed financial systems, and it can be captured and delivered to all those other business applications if done properly. Right now, because of these, as I said, these gaps between systems, and I heard it in the prior session, to fill that gap, there's a lot of old-fashioned things, paper, pencils. Barcodes has been a very great alternative to some of those systems, but there's still a manual process involved in capturing barcode data. And probably another pressure point on the supply chain, labor is short right now, and the cost of labor with minimum wage going up is higher. So plastering over these gaps with human capital has gotten more expensive, and it hasn't improved the accuracy. So there's a cost-benefit component to that solution, and it still doesn't drive real-time or near real-time data. So it's anytime somebody talks about a workaround, or that just is in my mind an admission that there's some sort of opportunity there that we can replace that human capturing of information and that manual input with an automated system. Okay? Everyone following me so far? All right. So this supply chain, we refer to it as supply chain IoT gap. It can occur in multiple places throughout the supply chain where there's an automatic process or a system, and then somebody's doing something manual or keying in information or scanning a barcode, and then it goes down the line, and then that happens again. And those all add delays, they add inaccuracy, and that information is not natively connected into the other applications. So let's talk a little bit about what we do at Impinj. We utilize, Impinj is, as I said, a manufacturer of RFID technology. It can be leveraged in a distribution center. Let's narrow the focus to that whole supply chain from raw materials to the customer, and let's just talk about the distribution center, just to narrow things down a little bit. And RFID technology can be utilized in the distribution center in a number of different ways. Tracking shipments, counting inventory, tracking assets, forklifts, or in manufacturing key components that are required to keep the line going. It's, everyone here know what RFID is? Okay. All right. And So at these different places in the distribution center, RFID can be leveraged to replace some of those manual or legacy systems that are capturing that data, and utilize the Impinj RFID platform to capture the data automatically. Fixed readers overhead, side-mounted, even handheld RFID scanners can be utilized to capture that information. It gives you accurate, individual, basically serialized information to confirm the activities or the inventory that's or the assets that are being tracked. Now within the warehouse, we can even go down a little bit further and say, for the use of, just to get a little bit deeper into one of those use cases, let's talk about the process of shipping a package out the door. Let's start at the edge of that warehouse where a product or a shipment, whether it's a pallet, maybe even a carton, is going out the door. You need to make sure that the right shipment is getting on the right truck, it's going through the right door, capture that item so it can feed those systems that are delivering the data to, throughout the supply chain. So what we do, and what we've developed, what we've even worked with Barcoding on, is identifying those shipments, putting an RFID tag on the pallet, on the carton, making sure and identifying it, tying that RFID tag. It can be tied to, to the shipping documentation. It can be tied to the order itself so that you can, you know what's in that box and what's going. And I'm not talking about individual item tagging here. I'm just talking about as you're packing or building a pallet or packing a carton, you identify that shipment container so it can be tracked. And it can be tied to the ANS so that, and with your warehouse management system, knowing that that package is supposed to go out door 60, it can confirm that that tagged item is going out, that tagged pallet is going out the right door, being loaded on the right truck. And there's a huge value there. I've spent time recently visited a 3PL. Very efficient, impressive operation. And they're touting their accuracy, their shipment accuracy at 98% and very high. What happens if it's wrong? Oh, we get chargebacks, or we have to pull the order again. All of a sudden, the labor costs and the effort and the inefficiency starts to escalate when something wrong happens. And I said, so how do you prevent that? Oh, we have quality control steps that we take, and 15% of the cartons are routed off and they're checked. And then there's another 5% of those that are routed off and checked again. And what it came down to is that any one shipment, if it triggered all the various quality control steps, it could actually be checked 4 or 5 times before it went out the door. And there's no guarantee that the right shipping label is getting put on that box, right? So even after all those extra steps that are all manual, means that they're processing one order 4 times, where it could be 4 discrete orders. And so they have basically covered up the challenge of getting accurate information by putting more labor into that. And they were struggling with the fact that they can't hire experienced people right now, and that everybody's 70% of their workforce was there less than a year. And so you're expecting inexperienced people to know how to support these gaps in their system, and it just is adding additional cost and time delays in the system. And again, that information still doesn't necessarily flow through to the other operational systems. So in the distribution center, there's a number of work cases that we've explored with end users or with partners. And there's a wide variety of, none of this is about replacing human labor, but it's just making sure that you automate the steps where humans are introducing errors into the process. So let them do what they do best, and let systems perform the jobs that they're better at, right? The automatic capturing of information. And there's more to it. It's not just replacing that error checking. There's kind of a down system flow. You collect that data and it can feed other analytics, other things that are real manual error catching process doesn't fulfill. And so getting data into an engine for analytics, once you tag an item, you can use that same tag later to confirm receipt of a shipment at the destination. That RFID tag can be leveraged for more than just tracking a package as it goes out the dock door. So and then also I was talking earlier about being able to scale. The RFID process can be pushed upstream so that you can track packages coming in, or you can track inventory strategically within a facility. Again, without requiring full coverage, but strategic placement of readers, maybe at a picking confirmation table or something along those lines. You can expand the leveraging of the platform as your budget and time allows. So shipment verification, capturing inbound or outbound shipments, utilizing RFID to fulfill that data capture. So I think labor costs and shortages is probably, I don't know if anybody has to be concerned about or has been concerned about that in their day-to-day job, but from a vendor standpoint, providing solutions, trying to address some manual systems, this has really changed the cost analysis of deploying an RFID type solution, because when labor goes up by 40%, all of a sudden that teeter-totter, it says, what's the cost, what's the benefit, and where does it fall? That changes dramatically. And so we've had a lot of companies that have come back that maybe evaluated RFIDs 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Cost of the technology were higher, labor was cheap. Price of the technology has dropped, labor's gone up, and all of a sudden it makes a lot more sense to engage in a project like this. So that's where we see a significant opportunity. So let me talk a little bit more about how our shipment verification works. And this is a solution that we've developed and we've shared with our partners like Barcoding so that it can be integrated into what they offer their customers. Tag a pallet or a carton, as I said. You put fixed readers around the dock door. Those can go on the side. And these are Impinj fixed readers. It's our gateway solution. It's power over Ethernet. So it's very easy to deploy. They can be fixed. We're working on an overhead solution in conjunction with the team here at Barcoding so that they can be up out of the way, clear from possible damage in the warehouse environment. And the really nice thing about this is that the deployability is much less expensive because it's PoE. You don't have to run electricity to each drop. You can configure the systems on the Impinj platform so it's a repeatable configuration that can be extended to all the devices. You don't have to configure each device individually. And it's a very comprehensive alternative to even other ways that RFID is being utilized in a distribution center. So traditionally, the way that RFID has been employed is side to side. It's on the left-hand side here, with some sort of shielding that's involved, and that protects the signal, bounce and picking up stray reads from other areas. And maybe there's a computer monitor attached to it that shows information, but the deployment is very challenging. And in discussions with Barcoding, there's been some analysis and testing of deploying the Impinj solution, which shows a capability to deploy 5 times as many doors in an 8-hour day than a traditional deployment would allow itself to. And so it's a faster, streamlined deployment. The configuration can be multiplied out across all the doors in the facility. The Impinj platform, we have item-sense software that is basically a controlling operating system for our readers. Collects the data, aggregates it. You can drive rules and algorithms in there so it cleans up the data before it delivers it to a solution. So it's very light on bandwidth requirements, and you can really optimize the readers through the item sense software and then send those jobs out to the full estate of readers in a single effort. So you don't have to go out and tune every reader and every antenna as you need to make adjustments. You can do that centrally through the item sense software. Questions? So in this particular case, circles indicate where the readers are. So you can see on the left, this is probably, I don't even know how big the framework is there, but it's big enough so a forklift can drive underneath it. These are the readers in an Impinj solution mounted side by side, capturing the RFID tags. You can configure them so you minimize the stray reads that are captured by those readers. And it makes it, as I said, very scalable and deployable in a rapid fashion. So, feel obligated to tell you a little bit about Impinj and what we do. We are solely focused on RFID. That's all we do. We don't do barcoding or anything else. We manufacture and develop the endpoints, the actual ICs that go into the tags or labels or that identify the items. And each one is a unique chip, and we make a wide variety of chips that are designed with more memory, less memory. Really, we can make recommendations with barcoding on the right chip for the item you're trying to tag. We have people that put our chips into certain materials that there's a wide variety. It gets kind of geeky on the different ways that people think of to put that IC onto an item, but they're embedded in everything from syrup containers that go in those automated Coke machines where you push the buttons and it puts out the drink, to alert people when a syrup canister needs to be replaced. They go into automobile tires or baggage labels and airline baggage tracking. So those chips are very important to Impinj, and we have a leadership position in those. We also manufacture, as I mentioned, our gateways, our readers that capture those tags and ICs as they go in through a read zone. And then the third layer, the connectivity layer, is our software, and that's what controls the readers. It collects that data, and then it delivers it to wherever the data is destined to go. In case with barcoding, we've been working with them with their RealView software to provide the data from the Impinj ItemSense platform into RealView to provide the RFID component into that platform. And we do this. We don't have an end user application. Again, our focus on RFID, we believe that most companies already own a lot of software that works really well. It just needs accurate data. And in combination, Impinj and barcoding, we can deliver accurate data, whether it's inventory counting or events related, to feed the needs of those applications. So this is kind of our brag slide. We make one platform. We have a leadership role in the RFID industry. Number one in market position in terms of those ICs, the identifiers that go into the tags and labels, or the products themselves. We manufacture the chips that go into readers, and we sell those not only as part of our own readers, but we sell the chips to other manufacturers that embed them into their products and include them in their products. So that gives us a leadership role with the RAIN RFID reader chips. And we also have a real pioneering position in terms of RFID technology. I mentioned, I dropped the term RAIN. RAIN RFID, RAIN's a standard that drives RFID, so that even if you're using our readers or you're using a Zebra or a Honeywell reader, they're compatible. with the ICs that we manufacture. We would argue that our ICs work best with our readers, and that we can, we have a little bit of a deeper understanding of those, so we can optimize them to work together. But the reality is that the RAIN organization drives standards. Impinj was one of the founding companies of the organization, because we believe that in order to really make RFID ubiquitous and drive our mission, which is connecting everyday items and giving them a digital life, that there's a standard that needs to be included. And so we are deeply invested and committed to that standard to drive RFID industry-wide. And because of our leadership share, we figured that RFID adoption only helps us, right? So it's not just that we're good guys and we want to support everybody. We're a little bit selfish, but that's the role we play within the industry. All right. Pretty close, huh? Any questions? Did it all make sense? Just a real high level. Yeah.
You said you manufacture these chips for anyone that needs that kind of connection?
I would say yes for anyone, except these chips, the chips that identify items, they're about the size of a grain of salt. And they don't do anything on their own. They require some sort of manufacturing to be put into a tag or label. So we work with go ahead.
I was reading something we were looking at, I did a video.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things we've been looking at is these tags that would allow the video itself to have this little RFID in it, so that it becomes smarter. And when there's an employee, let's say, who has an engineering problem, and he's always looking at one thing to fix something, instead of having to look through a 2-minute video which tells them how to fix it, once he looks at it or she looks at it a couple of times, when they open it, it will take the watcher to that specific part, because then that video becomes smarter and knows that this is what this engineer is always looking at. He's got a pump that has a bread tank. It could be in Africa or Caterpillar or whatever. And I was talking to somebody about the marker that would be in the video would be this little RFID that learned from the watcher.
So I imagine there's that type of, it does make sense. It's not something that we could do, because ours is actually a physical chip that you have to put on something. It can't be embedded digitally into, say, a video to find a place or identify a specific subject within that video. But we can put it on for a carton of yogurt and tell you when the expiration date is.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah.
It's also good for education, on board stuff that has never been in the warehouse before. To help them find, explain what each one does.
Yes. Any other questions? Okay, so there's been a request to go back to the main room for final words, and there's going to be a raffle. They're giving away a car, a really nice car. Tickets to a Ravens game. I'm not from the area. Does everyone know who these Ravens are? Thank you. You guys, thank you for coming at the end of the day.